Let's get it.
Different now that the record's out, like
I'm the same every day. So I'm the same.
Oh, I see. I can't pump fake. I didn't. I'm fucking dead, bro. All I did was just press square 1 second, like. Pow, I just tapped it just to do a pump fake.
Despite still being
I wouldn't shoot that long ass shot, man. I can't make that. Like,
he's truly a famous rapper.
Like, you're getting on my nerves this game sometimes.
K-Flock is also asked
I'm
by the
gonna be
interviewer
passing
why
it
people
this
say
game
he's
because
a
I've been
menace,
taking down
with K
shots.
ironically
So.
playing dumb.
I'm gonna still take the shots I need to, and I'm gonna be hitting y'all, man.
That's what I'm saying. I'll keep chilling.
Okay.
When asked by what name they go by as a trio, K-Flock says EBK or Everybody Killers.
EBK.
You look nice. You always do that.
From here, as we mentioned at the start of the story, at a certain point, overlaps between crews would lead to a breakdown of former friendships. In May 2021, Shah EK of the OGs posts on Instagram every flock a shot, YGs or not. An apparent diss towards K-Flock, giving his former acquaintance yet more reason to identify as EBK or an Everybody Killer. Meanwhile, though, over in the YG studio, all members are picking up steam in the rap game and using their newfound platforms to disrespect their enemies. On June the 4th, 2021, Yus G's of the YGs drops his song Warzone. This would feature disses aimed at K-Flock's former friend JB, as well as referencing Noah and Smelly, two of the young men affiliated with the OGs and Hybrid respectively, who lost their lives as part of this feud. A little while after this song released, K-Flock would go live beefing with Rajis of the YGs, confronting Rajis who had apparently told D-Thang that he had shot K-Flock in the stomach, with Rajis suggesting that K-Flock is being a snitch for airing out their personal gang business on live.
You know. Good defense. Good defense, bro. You really that guy. Good defense, I want you. Give that square. Give me that. Yeah, nigga. Go ahead, shoot it. We ain't scared of that. Yeah, that's out of bounds. How does dumb nigga get it? Ain't no, I'm fucking dead, man. I hate this game. I hate this fucking game. This little fast ass nigga ran over there and got it somehow. I'm live. Oh. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. We got to win. Hold on, y'all. We got to win.
Unfortunately, at this point, K-Flock is still putting out music in between his street feuds. At a certain point, taken to the recording booth to pile yet more disrespect on Raji's name, K-Flock's June 20th release, What You'll Wanna Do, aka Power, was a big track. The song's name and the sample underlying the UK drill beat was borrowed from Kanye West's classic Power. And in the track, K-Flock disses Raji's or Ra-Ra, saying that when they saw each other, Ra didn't shoot. He also once again references Wu Lottie tripping up and losing his life. He says openly that he's a demon and that he spins through the Bronx trying to kill, and saying that he will spin with 2 guns and take the life of anybody who represents OY. 3 days after this, on June the 23rd, Rajis will drop his own song with Nesty Flocks, BTB, responding to K. The track itself is full of disses aimed at K-Flock and Shari K, specifically trying to get under K's skin with insult aimed at JB. It's funny that K-Flock said in his earlier interview that he feels like he's a famous rapper now, because off the back of the music that he was making,
what? You didn't grab it?
Deep in the streets, K-Flock was starting to see the spoils of a successful career in music.
How you not gonna grab that,
to get his hands on a new car, a brand new BMW M4, a nice car which K-Flock apparently immediately starts using for sliding on the ops, posting clips online of him driving recklessly and dissing ops on the car. To be honest, at this point, K-Flock is really coming across as a live fast, die young kind of guy. But the reality is, the success of the music that he was making was truly giving him the financial means that he needed to get away from the dangerous blocks where he grew up and many of his friends were losing their lives. But K's pride just didn't seem to want to let any disrespect slide. On June the 28th, Rajis would tease a snippet to yet another song.
That's our shooter right there. He's the real one. He's the real shooter.
And only a few days later, on the 3rd of July, his homie, also of the YGs, D-Thang, along with Nesty Flocks, would release the incredibly disrespectful song Wedgie Man.
Oh, you there.
Being a reference to OG's member Shah EK,
oh, what?
been seen in a viral clip being given a a severe wedgie on social
How we
media.
didn't
This
get
song
the box
extensively
out,
disses Shari
man. I'm
K, aka
fucking
Jiggy
dead, man.
Once
We
again,
both
bringing
boxing
up
him
his
out,
earlier
like.
shooting, Nesty Vlogs would go on to diss other
Oh, yeah,
members
that's
like
Ring
Lil
Ring.
Thunder, who had apparently been
Oh, yeah.
attacked by Nesty
That's
and
the real one
Rajiv,
right there.
being tripped up and beaten in yet another clip posted to social media, but is again far too shocking to show you on YouTube. In the track, Nesty also claims to be OG's K, and D-Thang would go on to say that he's smoking Noah, Benji,
Nigga
and
is
Diddy,
too tall
something
for
that you
me,
will
bro.
hear him
Like,
do frequently
there's nothing
in
I can
many of
do
his
about
tracks.
it, bro.
He'd also go on to say that
Nothing I
Shari
can do
K
about
got
it.
shot, as well as dissing E-Dot. In response to this, only a few days later, K-Flock would be seen spinning the 800 YG's block once again. But this time, it was a much more serious escalation, with this provocation setting into motion a chain reaction that would lead to back-to-back killings, sparking one of the bloodiest summers that the Bronx had ever seen.
Pick up ball head. I got Afro Man.
A few days after D-Thang's latest track, K-Flock would go live on IG once
All right,
again.
come on, y'all. We need to stop right
YG's
here, and
block.
we need a big three for my boy, the white hat. Mr. White Hat.
Hey, what's up?
Bro,
They don't want to come
nigga,
up.
stop it.
They know what I do.
Oh, shit.
Look how comfortable I am on this block.
There was nothing I could do. My bad, dog. Man, fuck,
So I'm about to
man.
get lit.
I couldn't do nothing, man. He's too fucking tall. Like, these niggas is lame for even throwing it to him to try to win the game. Like, what happened to you, Mr. My Madden, with all your fast dribbling and threes? Why the fuck y'all getting carried by this level 1 big dude? You was supposed to make a 3. Fucking sorry ass nigga. You gonna pass it behind me to this big nigga for the win. Fucking scary ass
Like, what's
nigga.
up? Pop out.
Pussy.
Don't fake block. Pop out. Pop out right now. Right now, as we speak. Wanna make sure, you wanna make sure too. Pop out. Water my mother. Pop out right now.
Pussy gonna throw it to this big ass man. You lucky I ain't on my perimeter defender right now, big center. I would've locked your ass up, boy. On phone now. My bad, teammates, man. That was my game. My bad, dog. Oh, bro. Hey, if y'all wanna play, I'm still down to run with y'all.
You wanna go live on my block? Just know you on my block. Not worried about you. I'm not nobody live, nothing. I'm getting hot on my block.
Respectfully, I seen you
Come do
outside.
something.
Hey,
Come do something.
You a little kid, bro.
Sadly, from here, the
Yeah, that's more
consequences
like
of this
it.
war would get very deadly.
That's
But not for
more
K-Flock.
fucking
Only a day
like
after
it,
K-Flock and Ra Ra would go back and forth on social media, on the 7th of July at 11:35 p.m., a 19-year-old rapper associated with the YGs, known as Ty Swish, real name Tyquil Doherty, was passing through the lobby of his apartment block on Prospect Ave near East 182nd Street in Belmont. Here he was confronted by an assailant who shot him in the eye. He attempted to flee, but his injuries were too much, and he would collapse outside of his own building. A situation made even more tragic by the fact that he was found unconscious on the ground by his own mother. Ty was rushed to hospital, but would sadly lose his life.
19-year-old Tyquil Doherty was killed in this shooting. He was shot in the head and lived in this apartment building. He seemed to be walking in the doorway when he was shot in the head and killed.
A retaliatory attack would take place only 4 days later, with the target shockingly being a 13-year-old boy by the name of Jarian Elliott, known on the streets as J-Rip or J-Rip K. He was a young affiliate of the Crips from Sevside, and according to the police, he was at the scene of Ty Swish's murder days before, as well as having recently been seen online with other gang members. At around 3:15 p.m. on July the 11th, 2021, a black sedan pulled up to 743 East 187th Street near Prospect Avenue, with a gunman hopping out the back seat and opening fire on 2 boys standing on the street, with CCTV surveillance footage capturing a man firing across the street in broad daylight. One of the targets of the shooting managed to flee. However, J-Rip was struck once in the chest and once in the ankle. He would attempt to find safety crawling into the nearby Angels Cafe as panicked customers crowded around and tried to save his life. With the entire ordeal being caught on video and broadcast on the news, but once again it is too shocking to show you on YouTube. He would sadly lose his life en route to the hospital, being pronounced dead on arrival. With this situation being made all the more tragic by the fact that he would lose his life only weeks before his 14th birthday.
Police marked multiple shell casings inside and outside Angels Cafe as they gathered evidence throughout the evening. Surveillance video from across the street captured some of that chaos as an ambulance brought the young victim to the hospital, where he would be pronounced dead and was identified as 13-year-old Jarion Elliott. Outside his building tonight, candles glow in the shape of his initials, J.E.
Following his death, the news circulated an image supposedly showing J. Rip holding a handgun. The news would report that despite being the young age of 13, he was already a member of the Rolling 80s Crips, with the New York Post reporting that he had already been arrested 8 times despite only being 13. They would point out that he was specifically the intended target of the attack. And I've just got to say, it's truly shocking to think that anybody would get out of bed in the morning and go and hunt down a 13-year-old with a pistol. J. Rip was apparently a close friend of K-Flock, with K later posting throwback clips of them apparently play fighting.
No, you supposed to be my man.
Nah, why you choke like that on Facebook, bro?
Alright, but what I put on your timeline. What? And what I put on your timeline and say, yo, Happy New Year, big bro.
YGs like D-Thang would later go on to say that they're smoking J-Rip in songs and on social media. But even worse than that was Shah G's, who apparently went to the site of this killing, completely destroying Jay's mural and recording the whole thing for social media.
Alright, this time it ain't my fault, man. This time it ain't my fault, bro. My bad. I didn't know we were gonna get
An unnamed 16-year-old was later taken into custody for this crime, with it being rumored to be a young YG's member by the name of Dolo G's. He had apparently been accompanied on this hit by Raji's himself, but it would take the cops around a month to pick up Dolo for his involvement in the shooting. But unfortunately for Raji's, the police wouldn't be able to catch up with him before his enemies could. It was said openly in the news that Raji's was a member of the YGs and apparently present at the killing of J. Rip, and if the police knew this, then the ops certainly did too. And apparently, less than 10 hours after the killing of J. Rip, on July the 11th, 2021, a 16-year-old Raji's, real name Ramon Gil Medrano, was on the way to a recording studio. At around 11:35 p.m., he found himself sat in the back of a cab at East 187th Street and Valentine Avenue in Mount Hope. And it was here, sat in the back of the cab, when he is ambushed by 2 young men on scooters who open fire into the car, shooting him in the head and chest, leaving him dead instantly. But to make things even more shocking, the cab driver's CCTV passenger camera was on at the time of the hit, capturing Raji's assassination in full HD with audio. A truly shocking clip, which once again is far too violent to show you here.
Overnight, a boy murdered in the back of a taxi in the Bronx. Police say 2 suspects riding on a scooter opened fire on the cab, killing the 16-year-old in front of the driver who was not hurt.
Raji's lost his life at the hands of 2 teenagers with guns on scooters. But what's crazy is that this was just a year and a couple of days on from when Raji's had been shot in the back after once again being caught by teenagers on scooters. And this is less than a day after he had allegedly played a part in taking the life of a 13-year-old boy. In less than a week, 3 youngsters involved in this feud would lose their lives to violence. For me, it's honestly hard to believe that anyone between the ages of 13 or 19 have any idea or appreciation of the dangerous lifestyle that they've been born into at this point. Even despite some of the bad things that the youngsters involved in this story and who were targeted in these killings had allegedly done, I honestly just have the utmost sympathy for them all, because they never really had the proper guidance or choice to avoid such a terrible outcome at such a young age. No matter what they've done, they or their families just don't deserve to go through this, and it's very hard to place the blame on a 13-year-old who's been sucked and groomed into the gang lifestyle for what happened to him. From here, surviving members like D-Thang would mourn the loss of his friend Raji's, with other members making long posts on social media mourning the loss too. Meanwhile, the ops like K-Flock, who had just been beefing with Raji's only days before his killing, would brag that they're smoking on Rah-Rah, with others tagging K-Flock's music specifically to taunt and mock Raji's and the YGs. Others would point out the fact that Raji's had apparently said on social media that he'd been smoking on J. Rip after his death, with some suggesting that now Raji's would get the opportunity to meet J. Rip. Moolah G's would later rap in a leaked track called Shake It with a fire beat sampling Akon's Bonanza, referencing Raji's being left dead in the car. Bori 300 would rap on the same song that Rah-Rah caught a headshot, with WB going on to say that people can talk on J. Rip, but look what happened to Rah-Rah, suggesting that they're smoking him like the weed strain Zaza. Anywho, these back-to-back slayings were massive news in the Bronx community. The New York Post pointed out that the Bronx shooting rates have doubled between 2020 and the same period in 2021, with there apparently having been at least 380 shooting victims in the year up to that point. They reported saying that these kids were antagonizing each other on social media and then carrying out revenge shootings in real life, with a police source saying that they simply can't keep these young kids in jail, citing an apparently soft catch and release policy for juveniles, suggesting that youngsters that aren't of age yet are the perfect recruits to carry out older gang members' bidding. And it's details like this that genuinely just increase my personal sympathy for the young teenagers that are losing their lives as part of this war, because they really are often just being groomed into the gang lifestyle by older criminals from their neighborhood at a young age when they really don't know any better. It's truly unfair that some of these communities
in the
fam,
you want to run?
Have young people growing up with a complete lack of
so shorty. You want to pick us up a third or what? I'm not really good at inviting other players. They never want to accept my invite.
Music is providing a route for some of these young men to build legitimate careers and get out of the cycle of violence once and for all. And so, in the month that followed the bloody summer in the Bronx in 2021, it would appear that K-Flock would cash in massively off of the back of the anthems that he was creating about living this dangerous lifestyle, landing him the opportunity of a lifetime that sadly he seemingly would go on to squander.
Let me know if you get us one or if we should hop on the course. I'm with you.
A week after Rajiz was murdered in the back of a cab in the Bronx, K-Flock would be seen on social media lounging by a pool far from the deadly war on his block back home. It would appear that K-Flock had been traveling to meet various major record labels that were interested in signing him, with rumors swirling that he had eventually